Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the A Good Life podcast. And today we have an amazing guest that I'm so excited to present to you guys. A good friend of mine, somebody I've got to meet a few years ago and has had a huge influence and a blessing over my life. And I wanted to share that blessing and influence to you guys. Don Sams, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Appreciate it, Dimitri.
Yeah, no, we're excited. And I was telling you, Don, right before we started recording that oftentimes I speak at a lot of events, mostly Christian youth events, and I get asked a lot of questions. A lot of this youth wants to be very entrepreneurial. They want to start up a business. They're excited about the future. And I thought it would be an amazing resource and just a blessing to all of them to hear your story. You're a successful businessman, very well known in your industry, very well respected. It's not common that we get to encounter somebody that was able to be successful in business, yet be loved by his employees, be loved by the customers, and be loved by the community. And you seem to have successfully achieved all those things. So, you're somebody we're blessed to have, and love for you to kind of share the story. Where were you born? How'd you get into the insurance business? And how were you able to become so successful?
Well, I appreciate it. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words and the intro. I appreciate it very much. So I was born in the Midwest. Grew up on a cattle ranch or working on a cattle ranch till I was 15. Like to think that that's where I kind of learned the spirit of hard work and getting up early and doing the things you needed to do. So after that, grew up in the Midwest, went to college in Eastern Illinois University, got a bachelor's degree there. After college, I knew I always wanted to be in the business world, but I wasn't sure what that looked like, where that was. I had always believed in the American dream, work hard, get ahead, but I also knew that it took a little something more to really make the magic happen. So after college, I started looking at some things that I thought were things I'd be interested in. I looked at joining the FBI. I looked at going to work for IBM. Got with recruiters and started looking at different avenues within the business world, and came across a recruiter that said, there's a company that will send you to Atlanta, pay you for 6 weeks, and train you to be an insurance adjuster. And I wasn't quite sure what an insurance adjuster was, but I said, well, they're going to pay me for 6 weeks, send me to Atlanta. Let's give it a try. And went there, got trained as an adjuster, enjoyed the work, enjoyed the investigative aspects of the business, and came back to Chicago, was living in Chicago at the time, and started to work for a large corporation, spent a couple years there, and then met with some folks that were building a company in the western United States, and moved to Sacramento in the late 70s. And the company that was building, I really enjoyed being a part of that process of building that out, was very successful with them, became vice president in charge of their sales division, and things were good. And it felt like that might be where I belonged. It was a smaller company and a lot of things that I was looking for as far as quality of life in the workplace that I could balance with spending time with family. Got married and had a couple of children, and life was good. And then the owner of that company decided to sell to a big corporation. And I was fortunate. I was part of the deal and, had a big job there, senior vice president of their adjusting division, and then life was good. But I realized when I was with the big corporation that wasn't necessarily for me. I felt more like, I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to build a company where I could have that camaraderie and that spirit of belonging and team. And I just didn't sense that with this corporation I was working with. And the day I suppose I knew that was the day we did a major reduction in force. Excuse me. And I was just eating my gut out over letting all these folks go, turning their lives over. And the CFO came out, and he's all giddy and happy. And I said, well, you know, what are you so happy about? Oh, today's the day of the reduction in force, and we're going to save all this money. And I'm like, you know, this is not where I belong. So, you know, spent a lot of time in prayer, talking to my family, and it was a big step because, you know, you're making a nice salary, life is good, and, you know, you start your own thing. And, you know, after a lot of prayer, I met with one of the insurance companies we were working with at the time, and the vice president of claims happened to be in California, something he never did, but he'd call me and say, I'm going to be there this weekend. We met, and he said, well, as long as I'm the VP of claims here, I'll keep the wolves away from the door for you. And I thought, that's all I need. Didn't save my money as effectively as I should have, but you know, we were very blessed. Went out on my own. My first office was my accountant's conference room. I shared his old thermal fax machine with him, and we started with myself and young lady out of high school and one adjuster. And over the next 25 years, we built it out to about 120 employees, full-time employees, and a large stable of 1099 folks that we used in outlying areas. We were in 10 western states, and worked out very well. We built a company that had a tremendous amount of camaraderie, and people enjoyed working there. We had very little turnover. The only turnover we had was generally turnover that was forced by our client base because they just didn't fit in our culture. And it was a great run. After 25 years, I sold to a large corporation and stick around a couple years to make sure my people were taken care of. But that's kind of the story. And just I don't know if we really want to get into some of the things that I think are important in getting us there and such like that, and what some young folks might want to be thinking about rather than spend a bunch of time on who I am. But a couple just words of wisdom that I would pass on is, a big part of your success in life, relationships, business, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're working in the corporate environment, is attitude. It is 90% of the game. And, if you have a great attitude and you always have a way, a confident way about yourself that you're going to get it done, you're going to get it done in a way that's not uprooting or undermining other people, you're going to be successful. You can have, one moment of bad attitude that can change a relationship for a lifetime. The old adage of, act in haste and repent in leisure is really very true. So it's just so important as you go out to think about opening your own business or whatever that you maintain that attitude that you can get it done. There's going to be times where you will be scared to death. When I started my own company, there were many days when I was thinking to myself, it's not just if I fail, it's not just the money, it's my ego, it's everything, but I was prepared for that. If I did fail, I knew I could go out and figure out something else to get it done. But I never let that take away from my confidence that I can make this thing happen. And as I say, we were very blessed to do so. So that's a whole lot about me. And
well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Well, I want to dig in a little deeper and ask you some questions. You said attitude is 90% of your success. You have amazing attitude. every time I've met you, we've been around some friends, some people. You always tend to kind of make everybody smile, everybody laugh, make everybody welcome, feel warm. Where would you say, is that something you've had since birth? Is that something that was instilled with you maybe in your upbringing? Where'd you pick that up?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both. I think certainly some folks are a little more outgoing than others, but I never really was that outgoing kid in school. I was more the shy, retired type. I think I predominantly learned it. I had a mentor in the business, a guy named Vern Neufeld, way back in the day. And I was always amazed that when Vern walked in the room changed. And it was because of his attitude and his personality and coming in and, trying to lift everyone up in the room that he could, depending upon the size of the room and the number of people, and bring light to the room. And I always did my best to pattern my behavior and life on how Vern did business and treated people, and he was very genuine about it. And that was the thing. He truly loved people, and it came through. So
That's
I guess I
interesting.
learned it as more than it was born with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that wasn't per se a natural thing that you just born with, but it's a skill that you were able to pick up and learn along the way. And so over many years, you kind of developed that. Right now, is it difficult for you? Do you find it a burden when you go into a room and you try to, is it something that's heavy on you, or you find it to be easy to kind of?
Now it's just natural. And it's after many years of kind of honing that and trying to pattern myself after Vern Neufeld. Now it's become very natural. Sometimes that becomes a burden in itself. I don't suppose I've ever left a meeting where I haven't said to myself, why didn't you shut up and listen? And sometimes you get in there and you have to gauge that a bit because it can be too much, and then you don't get a chance for other people to do their thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that attitude. Positive attitude on life is so important because it changes your perspective. You could be in a difficult situation, because in business, when you have too little work, that's scary. When you have too much work, that's scary. When you have, and all those things bring new challenges. And unless you can be positive about it, and get excited, well, for Slow for Work, this is a good thing. We get to read some books, go through some courses, strengthen our skills. Otherwise, you could be miserable through the entire process, and changes your outlook. Well, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. You ran a pretty successful business, very successful business, over 120 employees in 10 different states. Do you have any moments through your business where you felt that you were on the verge of failing? You kind of share that was on your mind, that you were prepared if it didn't work out. And do you mind sharing some of those and how you were able to come out of it?
Sure. A couple of things, both very different. There was a time when the business was off in the industry. Claims frequency was way down during the 2008 economic crash. All commerce kind of came to a screeching halt, and it drastically impacted the claims world. So we got hit hard by the number of claims that were coming in, and we had to kind of reinvent ourselves and look for product lines within our product lines that we could establish more work. Go and sit down with our customers, better understand what they were going through, what their challenges were, and kind of tailor-make a solution to the goals and objectives or issues that were facing them, and in doing so, come up with a new line of service to keep the income. I also had a team of people that we were truly a family, and I sat down with everyone in the conference room, and then other folks that had called in, and we did a poll of everyone. I said, now, we have two choices here. We can lay some folks off. Can't say who those are going to be right now, but we're going to have to trim the sails. Or we can all take a 5% reduction in pay overall. And that means everybody. And it was a unanimous decision. We take the 5%. Nobody
awesome.
voted against that. And fortunately, it was only, 9 months later, we were able to overcome it and reinstate the original salaries, and things were good. There was another instance where it's also was kind of a business lesson to me. I had a friend that was a business consultant that did consulting with Fortune 500 companies, big time consultant. And he was between gigs, and he said, hey, how about I come in and take a look at your business? And he came in and spent about a month looking at our business. And at that time, we had one particular customer that was about 60% of our revenue. I knew that was a dangerous position to be in, but we got complacent. It seemed to be working out. After a month, he came into my office and he said, well, when I tell you what I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to throw me out of your office, but I'm going to tell you anyway. And he said, you need to fire X company as a client. And I'm like, whoa, settle down. They're 60% of my business. And he said, I understand, but you're spending 90% of your time on them. They're your least profitable client, and you're spending an inordinate amount of time to service that customer. If you spent that same amount of time building new business, nurturing existing clients, you would be much more profitable and better off in the long run. And that's what we did. We met with that customer, decided that we were going to part ways. And just as he said, within less than a year, we had replaced that business with quality, profitable business. And then that same customer that was giving us grief and not willing to pay a fair rate came back to us, willing to pay a fair rate, and developed a better attitude about, their folks dealing with our folks on what needed to be done. So it came full circle. It was all very successful. But it was a difficult time. You take that leap of faith. There's a part of in your brain that it makes sense that, yes, you're spending 90% of your time on something that's 60% of your business, but it's still 60% of your business. And as being in the business world, you've in business for yourself, you got to make payroll. And there's nothing worse than that sleepless night of, are you going to make payroll? And we were very blessed and very fortunate that we were able to overcome in both those instances and come out a better company for it.
In order to be successful in a business, you have to, and you share this, that you build a really solid team. It's very encouraging to hear that your whole team voted to take a 5% cut across the board just to make sure nobody gets laid off. That speaks to their to the leadership, which speaks to you being in charge, leading the way. But I think a lot of the success in a business has to do with the team and the staff you have on board. And obviously, you were able to successfully pick, choose, raise, lead the right people. How are you able to recruit? That's one of the biggest problems we have in the business world is how do you recruit solid, strong people? Did you find professionals, or did you find people that you felt like you could raise up and build? And what was the success you had?
Well, it was a combination of different things. We were never big about using professional recruiting companies. We didn't feel like we necessarily got the best degree of talent through those types of entities. But predominantly, most of our folks were hired through people on our team. I would put the word out to our team, listen, we need a person here, we need a person there. And they would utilize their network to put the word out that we were looking. in most cases in our industry, the quality people that we hired were not people that were necessarily out there looking for a job. They hadn't applied with a recruiter. They weren't necessarily filling out applications and sending in resumes. But once we had developed a reputation of a good place to work and very little turnover, it was more appealing to some folks when we were able to reach out to and get them interested. So certainly having a reputation of a good place to work is very helpful in the process. However, I would say that predominantly all of our best people either came through our employees and team members or our clients. I would put the word out to our clients because in many cases we were dealing with insurance companies that were on a national level, and I've been looking for someone in Denver, Colorado. That's way out of my network. So I would talk to clients that I knew utilized our type of services in Denver, Colorado, and find out who the big players are, and just reach out to them and see if they were interested in looking at a change. And we were always looking for different types of things that we could offer people that would be enticing to them. Once, benefits became a big issue, we really did everything possible to develop, even for a smaller company, the best benefits package available. Make sure that our packages were comparable or better than our competitors, and then maintain that reputation of a great place to work. And when we hired people through our people or our customers, 90% of the time they worked out because they were known quantities to us. But when you are hiring people through a recruiter or people that just send their resume cold, you need to dig further than the resume. You really need to sit down with these people, look them in the eye, and get to know who they are as a person before you make that decision to hire them. Especially, we were a service business. Our people dealt directly with our customers. They dealt directly with the general public. So we couldn't have people that were loose cannons, that were, problematic attitudes. So we were very careful about the kind of personalities and people, that we put in those positions. And we were pretty successful at it. Not that it worked out all the time, but we were pretty successful at it. But as I say, your people and your clients are always going to be your best source.
I love that. Love that. Talk to your clients and find out who is it that they've used at a different company that they've loved. That's gold right there. That's a golden nugget.
Yeah.
I like to share. Talk to me about competition. Have you ever had any of your employees break off and compete against you? If you had, how'd you deal with that? And if you hadn't, did you stay close to your competition? Were they far away? How does that play into having a good attitude about business?
Yeah. As far as our existing competition, I always maintained respect for them, and it was mutual. When many years ago at the associations, folks would do hospitality suites and, entertain customers. And we were kind of known for having, nice hospitality suites. And my competitors were always welcome. I would let them come to our suite. Our clients were there. And, my position was take your best shot. And interestingly enough, we never ever lost business through that. But I had many of our customers come up to me and say, man, that to me shows me everything about you guys as an organization, that you're confident enough in who you are and what you do to play nice with your competitors. Never badmouthed our competitors. Just didn't feel like, I felt like if I was badmouthing my competitors, I was badmouthing our industry. And that was just not something that I felt was was productive or made any sense business wise, and certainly didn't feel right personally. I only had a couple folks that broke off to do their own thing, and they were people that were in the far outlying areas, and it was going to be a small piece of what we did. And in I think it was only 3 times that happened, we actually worked out a deal that they would continue to do our work and their own work too, and it worked out just fine. But fortunately, during the time that we were in business, we did not have anybody break off and do their own thing. Now, when I sold the company to a big national concern, obviously the culture of our company changed overnight. And at that time, one of our key people did break off and start their own business and was able to capture a big segment of that business that was Sam's and Associates, because the large corporation just had a disconnect in that personal relationship with the customer.
That's interesting. Competition is always, you have two feelings about them. It's people you respect, because anyone that's able to run a successful business is obviously doing something right. And then there's always an internal struggle to try to get ahead, which I think is good. Being competitive and wanting to win is a good quality. Don, a couple more questions that are very interesting to me. How were you able to, or were you able at all to kind of go through life and balance, your personal life, your family obligations, and then running a successful business?
Well, it wasn't easy. There's only so much time in the day, and you really need to, look at your family and what their needs are, and kind of figure out what's the best time of the day for you to be working. And there was times when I had to kind of restructure the way I worked. There was a time when I would start work later in the morning and work later into the evening. Once the kids were, started playing sports and doing things after school, and I was being a part of that, life changed. I got up considerably earlier and, was able to do a lot of my work and looking at reports and P&Ls and those kinds of things early in the morning. So I did my best to kind of structure my work life to accommodate the family. But that's a work in progress all the time. It's something that you can't take your eye off the ball. You can't get complacent. You really have to watch your family, your kids, and, make sure that you're filling their needs. And, family comes first, and that's the way it was, with our company as well. If folks had a family need, we made sure that was taken care of, and we had people within the company that would step in and fill the gap for them. And that was part of what made our company what they were. But it's definitely a challenge. It's something that you got to work at every day and make sure you're, aware of what your family needs are and take care of them. At the same time, you need to, without being too flippant, you need to marry right. You know what I mean? You need to find a partner that's going to allow you to be successful and support you in being successful and be your partner in being successful, and fill some of that gap with the family when you have to do what you have to do for the business. So it's very important that you find a good partner in life to make that to get that done. Otherwise, it's probably the impossible dream.
Yeah, I like to share that I see so many eagles, guys out there who are just smart, ambitious, good looking, just got everything going for them. And then they marry somebody that puts them in a cage. And I'm like, you've got an eagle, but you caged them.
Right.
And sometimes I feel like a sparrow, I'm a little sparrow with a broken wing, but because my wife gives me the support, she believes in me. I feel like she's the wind in my sail, and I'm out here flying, and I can't believe I'm flying.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that's awesome. Liability, being a business owner is a lot more than what it seems like from the surface. Kind of the you carry the weight of paying payroll. You also carry the weight of any potential liability, lawsuits, being sued by your employees, being sued by your clients, being sued by people that aren't your employees or clients. They just want a piece of the pie. Have you ever been sued? Has that ever been something that was heavy on your heart? How'd you deal with that component of being in business?
Yeah, I've been sued. Certainly in the business that we're in, it can be a very litigious environment. Fortunately, we weren't sued a great deal, but when we were, we always had endeavored to do the right thing, and we always felt pretty good about our position. I always hired good counsel, and but yeah, it is one of those things that can create sleepless nights for you, thinking about, goodness, if I lose. Fortunately, as I said, most of the cases brought against us were situations we were easily able to defend. You got to buy every possible insurance that you can. If you're in business, if you're in a service business, you need to have, errors and omission insurance. You can have. They're going to come with big deductibles, and it's still going to be a hurt when you pay $100,000 deductible. But you have to make that deductible something that you can afford or get by, and insure the rest. You cannot. I cannot stress enough the need for appropriate insurance in the business world. I was big about over-insuring. One of the things that I always prided myself on in the business world, and especially in the claims world, which, as I say, can be very litigious, is I was never the plaintiff in a lawsuit. I never sued anyone. I'm a big believer in karma. I think that possibly had something to do with it, because I made a point that I always felt, and I think that we avoided a lot of the lawsuits of us being sued and named as defendants, because we always looked for ways to try to find some middle ground. There's going to be some individuals that you just can't reason with, but in most cases, you can usually find some kind of middle ground that's reasonably acceptable to all parties. And in 80% of the time when there was a potential lawsuit coming down the road, or even when a lawsuit has been filed, we've been able to negotiate terms that both parties could live with and walk away. So I was always big on doing everything possible to negotiate a settlement that's somewhat reasonable to everybody involved, and otherwise make sure you're appropriately insured.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a couple of personal questions, and it'd be interesting for the folks out there that know you or maybe don't know you that much. Share with us some of your hobbies. I know you like cars, at least for that, because you drive a very nice car. What are some things you enjoy out in life that's not business?
Yeah, I certainly enjoy cars. I enjoy auto racing, all types of auto racing. I have friends that are in the stock car racing. I have friends that are into IndyCar racing. A good friend of mine was a crew chief on an IndyCar team and followed IndyCars for years, traveled all over the country watching IndyCars. So cars and car racing is definitely always been a passion. Did a lot of fishing. I haven't fished as much here recently as I would like to, but growing up and even during my years of running Sam's and Associates, took clients out on charter fishing trips and really enjoy fishing. That's something that has given me great relaxation. And also with clients, taking them out on a boat was always a great bonding time to spend out there with them, kind of one-on-one. in a nice environment, out on the water. So those have been, and then cooking, spending time with friends. I love hanging with friends and just being, around the table. As you can tell, I enjoy a good meal, and sitting around the table and cooking together and just talking about life, talking about the world is something that is time that I really treasure. Whether it's just family, good friends, or people that we just happen to to meet.
Yeah, what I hear from when you say these things, and you talk about attitude and you talk about enjoying spending time with family, I hear a lot of love. I boil it down to love. It's just when you have that abundance of love in your heart towards people, then you enjoy everything. You enjoy the hardships with them, the fun times, the fellowship, the food, the fishing. Just love people. So that's pretty awesome. Now, Don, if you could go back to and tell your 20-year-old self some advice, what would you tell yourself?
From a financial standpoint, it would be buy real estate and don't sell it. Just hold on to all your real estate. Don't sell any houses, and buy every one that you can. From a pure financial sense. Business advice would be the same one that I give myself pretty much after every meeting, and that's shut up and listen. People have a story to tell. You get more from listening than you do from talking, but it's sometimes very hard when you have something you think you want to say. But you'd get a lot more out of life if you just shut up and listen.
A lot of our audience and listeners are young people. Some of them, are even wondering about should they even go to college. There's this, it's kind of we're living in an interesting time where maybe college, university education is not always the best option. What would you say? You got your master's degree, you said?
Just bachelor's
degree. What kind of advice would you give to the young folks if they want to get into business? Should they still pursue a degree in business? And
I don't think it's as imperative now as it was back in the day. Of that you need a college degree. Now it sort of depends where you want to go. If you're looking to be with a large corporation, a Fortune 500 company, then you're going to have to go to school. Those types of companies require either a bachelor's or a master's degree to get in the door. So that's life. If you're looking to be an entrepreneur, going to college is not a necessity and may very well be a waste of 4 years of time. Now, that being said, you need to use those years wisely. You need to step into it now. You can't take an attitude of I'm going to spend 3-4 years thinking about this and then I'll do something. You need to get busy and get about what you're going to do. There's right now in today's world, tremendous shortage of people in the trades. Folks aren't training to be welders and electricians and plumbers. And, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you become highly skilled at a particular trade, that is a perfect type of business to go out now and train and bring out young people along and become a plumbing contractor or an electrical contractor. A great opportunity to develop your own business. And so right now I would say unless you're looking to be in that large corporation, be or certainly if you want to be an attorney or a doctor or whatever, that's a very different scenario. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't think it's necessary to go to college. Now, if you're going into a particular area of business, you need to research what type of knowledge they need to have, and you're going to need to have, and you're going to need to apply yourself in that regard. But I don't think it's a necessity to go to college in today's world at all for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you're wondering what you should be doing, find yourself a really good company with somebody where you can learn from, and one of my first job was working at a pizza place here in Rockland, and it's probably the most impactful for my future business endeavors, because the boss that I worked for would force us to upsell. He would always tell us, it's a Friday night, we're going to get 200 calls, 200 orders, all we're going to get. And everybody's going to want a medium size or a large size pepperoni pizza because they're watching a movie or whatever, and he said, so if you get 200 calls and you sell 200 pizzas at $20 a piece, that's going to be X amount of dollars. But if you can upsell them with a soda, with a salad, with some, breadsticks, you can, up the sales by 50% that night, and, teaching the responsibility of keeping things clean, good customer service on the phone. So oftentimes I feel like that 1 year of working at the pizza place was much more valuable to me than the year I spent in college, although that was also somewhat valuable, taking reading classes and writing classes and psychology and everything else was definitely fun. But I feel like the hands-on at the pizza place was really, really good. Well,
Well, I think you make a point there too. You need to, whatever you're doing, take whatever you can from it, because every experience in life, whether it's working at the pizza place, the year in college, there's gems of wisdom in all of it and all people that you meet. And I think whatever you do, if you apply yourself, keep your head in the game, there's something to be learned in all those life's experiences.
yeah, and it's the attitude you were talking about that is so important, because you could be working at a pizza place, and if your attitude is they don't pay me enough, it's hot in here because I'm around the oven all the time, customers are too demanding, you can spend 5 years at a pizza place and walk away with nothing.
Right.
But if you've got that attitude, we're like, ooh, this is nice. Let's
You
learn, and we're gonna have fun at it. You're gonna walk away with treasures of the wisdom. Well, Donna, I appreciate you coming and sharing your story with us today. Maybe we'll do this some other time and talk about other things. But thank you so much.
Sounds good. I've enjoyed it. Appreciate being here.
Yep.
Thank you.